Welcome, everybody, to March 2022 Washington WREIA. Let me adjust my screen a little bit. I apologize for us coming in a little bit late tonight. We had a few glitches here on my side. So thank you, everyone, for coming in. If you want to join us and say hello, welcome to do that tonight. Dominic, the only one listening. Tonight, we're going to be talking about an ultimate guide to your first flip. I'm just going to give everyone a few minutes here to kind of come into the screen. One of the things that we have found is we've gone virtual with Washington WREIA now for the last, it's been 2 years, if you can believe it. 2 years come April, May, the next month or two, we've been with you virtually. We find that a lot of folks watch the presentation later. We're getting a lot of good feedback from it, a lot of good questions. But certainly as you join us live, if you have any questions, you have any comments, if your experiences are different, if you have anything to add, we welcome that. You can either throw your question up on a screen, or you can let me know later. You can either email me or text me later. It doesn't necessarily have to be during the live broadcast. But as I said, we're going to be talking tonight about ultimate guide to your first flip. So those of you tuning in, or those of you that see this later, if you're new to this business, this will give you kind of an overview, if you will. A lot of you know with Washington WREIA, we only have about 45 minutes. So we certainly can't teach you the whole business in that time. It takes some time. It takes some education. It takes some trial and error, if you will. But this will give you a good overview on the things that you need to start working on to get your first flip. I want to start out tonight by, I'm sure your feeds are similar to mine. If you click on different news stories, or if you click on different things about real estate, you're going to get a lot of varying degrees of opinions right now, right? You're going to get a lot of folks that start out with the line, is the housing bubble about to, is the housing market about to crash, or how are interest rates going to affect the housing market, or you better refinance next month, or forget about it, different things. And if you start clicking on these things and you start opening up these and you read them regularly, you can get pretty depressed. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world, as all of us know, with the war in Ukraine, with gas prices and inflation kind of taking off, with the housing market kind of feeling like it's still pretty good. But why is that? Stock market kind of a little bit jittery. People talking about 6, 7, 8, 9 interest rate hikes. So I just want to start out tonight by just telling you that just maybe, sit back, relax a little bit, maybe not hit on all these different stories. Just understand that there are things changing, things outside of our control, things that we really have very little knowledge of, to tell you the truth. And quite honestly, even the experts really don't know what's going to happen with the economy, with the housing market, let alone Vladimir Putin and what his plans are overall in the world. So we really have to protect ourselves sometimes from the news. Now, if you've ever listened to me, or if you ever come out to one of our meetings, I'm a big advocate of staying current, reading a lot, anything you can get your hands on, blogs, any kind of podcasts, any kind of articles. I mean, I'm still a reader of many different newspapers: Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Washington Business Journal. I read magazine articles out of Bethesda Magazine. I mean, and certainly many, many things online over the course of the day. And I try to stay up on what's going on, and I try to relate it to what I'm seeing in my own business. How does it, what am I seeing versus what are they saying? And I try to then adapt my business according to that. But ultimately, folks, we can only do what we can do, and we have to really focus on what I call our small economy, our little businesses, our way of making money in real estate. And the good news is there is a lot of ways to do that. Okay, so there's many different ways you can do that based on the market and based how things are going in your own type of business. So I want to just start out with that. I don't want people to, because man, I can start reading these things and I can start saying, whoa, we better buckle up here. It could be quite a ride. But ultimately, things never really turn out quite as bad as people think, and they also don't quite turn out as good as people think. It's somewhere in the middle. So I just want to start that. Maybe that's kind of maybe some of the things I've been feeling as I've been reading things versus how my own business is going. And so we got to protect ourselves certainly from almost oversaturation of information. We're just bombarded all the time. And if we take it all in and we never really sit back and go, okay, what part of this can I use? What part of it can I throw away? What part of it I'm not really worried about? Doesn't really affect me in this market. I think that's maybe a good strategy for us to do. All right. We seem like we're getting a few more folks on. Good to see everyone. Again, if you have questions as I go through any of the information, feel free to chime in. We'd be happy to do that. Now, we have a very experienced group in Washington WREIA. We have a lot of folks that are very active. We have people that have been doing deals for many, many years, not only here in the DC metro area, but other parts of the country, folks that own rental properties, folks that have invested in notes, people that have done a lot of buy, renovate, and sell type deals. So I did want to address this. So we haven't really talked to, if you will, the new investor, the first time investor. And as I said, people kind of click on these things and they take a look at them later down the road. So we thought this might be a good opportunity just to introduce some of this material. Now, again, if you're listening tonight and I see some of you and I recognize names that I know have some experience, maybe it'll jog something in your memory. I know when I prepare these things, as I told you many times, things kind of come back to me and go, gosh, why am I not doing this? Why have I gotten away from this? Maybe I should add this to my business. Maybe I should be doing more of some of these items, and it might make a big difference. So we're never not learning. We're never not adjusting. We're never not circling back, if you will. So we always want to be cognizant of that and see if we can add some of these things. Maybe I'll teach you or show you here tonight. But again, a lot of this is for someone that is just starting out, for someone that maybe's been around the real estate game. Maybe you own rental property. Maybe you own one or two rental properties and your idea is to maybe do one or two flips this year. So all these things are good. So let's start out. All right. So tonight's kind of a presentation, if you will, is we title it Process, Profit, and Pitfalls, Ultimate Guide to Your First Flip. So we're going to touch on each of these areas, and I'm going to give you, again, some of the things that I see, not only in my own business, but other people that I work with and people that call me and people that I kind of help out a little bit in the real estate investment business. So let's start out with the process. Now, the challenge with meetings like this, especially online, is that I could write literally thousands and thousands of pages on each one of these things. I mean, it's not something that you can learn in an hour. It has been presented that way many times. It's presented as get rich quick. It's been presented as very easy to do. A lot of you have watched a lot of shows on TV. Gosh, every other channel seems to be fix it something. First time fixers, fixers with problems, fixers with a partner, fixers without a partner. I mean, there's multiple of these shows on TV. And when you watch that, people just forget that a lot of these shows are made for TV, or they are made for TV. Now, there's some kernel of truth in all of this, but if you're day to day like I am, and other people on this Washington WREIA meeting, and other people that I know, sometimes their day to day doesn't really kind of mirror our day to day. So it's not get rich quick. It's not simple per se. It's like any business. You got to start it. You got to have interest in it. You got to set it up correctly, and you got to really, really work it. So the first part of this is the process. And I just want to break this down into 5 different areas where you need to start really focusing. And each of these areas can be somewhat complex, but we're going to try to keep it simple because it doesn't have to be over complex. That's the great thing about real estate investment. There's a lot of different ways to go with this. So in the first part, we got, you know what? Hold on one second. I'm going to do a quick online call for you. This is kind of off the stream, but let's see what this person needs. Hello, this is John. Yes. Oh, well, I'm on the program right now. You're live on the air. Well, did you join up online? You can go to, why don't you go to YouTube right now or Facebook, either one, and you can join us live. And when you get in, just say hello, okay? All right, bye-bye. All right, sorry about that. I thought that might be a sales call, so I could maybe mirror a little bit of a sales call, but it was just someone that wanted to join tonight's meeting. So maybe we'll see if she figures it out. Okay, so the process. All right. So I'm going to break this down into 5 different areas, and we're going to talk about each of these. The first thing I want you to do, if you're thinking about doing your first flip, and this is very simple, but a lot of people get stumble on this. Number 1 is identify the geographical area, okay, that you want to invest in, that you think a good flip is. Now, in my experience, the areas that you should identify, and this is broad, this is general, but generally, and I've done this, folks, now for 20 some odd, I'm even embarrassed to tell you, probably 28 years. And what I've done in my career is that when I spend my marketing dollars, and we're going to be talking about that, we want to focus on areas, mainly our working class first-time homebuyer areas. That's where most of these flips happen. Now, that doesn't mean you can't look into, anywhere, Mitchellville, Cheverly, Chevy Chase, Bethesda, Potomac, Northwest DC. You can flip a house anywhere, but primarily the areas that we're doing most of our flipping, okay, most of our flipping are in first-time homebuyer neighborhoods. And I say working class, but I use that term loosely. It's mostly first-time homebuyer neighborhoods. So if someone dropped me into random state, Nebraska, and they say, I want you to identify a market in Lincoln, Nebraska that I could flip houses. Well, I would drive the area and I would do some online research, and I would find where the average homeowner, average first-time home buyer is buying homes. And that zip code is where I would start my marketing in order to find a deal that I could buy, renovate, and sell. So that's what we're talking about tonight. So the first thing is I'd pick that geographical area. And then I would get to know that geographical area like the back of my hand. I would know a lot of streets. I would know, rents. What are the average rent in the neighborhood? What's the average home sell for in that zip code or in that area or that county? I would get to know everything I possibly could about that area. That's your first step. Very simple homework item. First thing, if you've never done this before, identify an area. Identify an area that has a lot of first-time home buyers or working class neighborhoods with first-time home buyers. Get to know that neighborhood. What are houses selling for? What are average rents in that neighborhood? What's average turnaround time for a house to stay on the market? And that changes based on our market, right? Get to know, and that's where you're going to start networking, get to know also your network too, that I'll talk about here in a minute. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, sounds simple. I've been teaching this or preaching this for 20 plus years. After you have figured out that geographical area, after you have figured out that area that you're going to focus in, the second thing is you have to focus. You have to focus on a word. And a lot of you have heard me say this word for many years. That word is motivation. You got to focus on houses that are motivated, houses that need work. That is primarily what we're buying when we're going in, obviously, and fixing up houses and reselling them. Houses that need work. You also need to focus on motivation by the owners of that real estate. So people's motivation. Think about that. Again, a lot of you have heard me say this for many years. People that are going through divorces, people that are going through cash flow issues, people that have passed away and are inheriting a house, people that are moving out of their house and haven't done any work in their house for many years. The older population, people that are moving into assisted living centers, people that own houses as rentals, as landlords. I mean, anything of motivation from a person perspective, okay? Think that through, write that down. That's who you want to market to. That's where your pitch is. That's where your focus is on finding these houses. So a geographical area, working class first-time home buyer, you're looking for houses that need work, and you're looking for people that want to sell. Motivated sellers, motivated property. When those two marry, when those two things come together, those are your best deals. And I have example after example after example. And any investor that has done more than 10 deals, 20 deals, 100 deals, all their examples will revolve around those two things. The house needed work or the person needed to sell. And sometimes we know why the person wants to sell. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes not so obvious. And when they want to sell and the house needs work, boom, those are our best deals. So that's what you need to focus on. Now, we're going to break this down into 5 areas, okay? 5 areas that you're going to focus on. You're going to focus on locating houses. You're going to focus on analysis. So once you've located a property, you got to know your numbers. So you got to figure out analysis. Then you're going to focus on financing, how you're going to pay for this. This is the most basic ideas of finding your first flip. Locating a home, analyzing it, financing it, renovating it, because we're guessing that it's going to need some work. Okay. And then finally selling that house. Those 5 areas. You get those down, you'll be a machine. Okay, you'll be a machine. And as I said, each of those areas takes some time to get comfortable with. But that's where your focus is: locating houses, figuring out the numbers, financing the houses, fixing the houses, and selling the houses. Let's take each of those. Excuse me for 1 second. I need to cough here. All right. Locating, number one thing, right? If I could tell you, get you good at anything, it'd be locating good deals. Is it easy? No. Has it ever been easy? Not really. Has it always been competitive? Yes. Is it more competitive today than it's ever been? I would say yes. I would say yes. Why? Because just the plethora, is that a word? Plethora of investors that want to flip homes. It used to be more of a niche business, no doubt about it. Now realtors want to do it, loan officers, contractors, your neighbor. Everybody wants to renovate a house. That's because of the internet, folks. It's because of TV shows. It looks sexy. It looks easy. It looks fun. A lot of those things are not totally untrue. They just exaggerate it on the TV shows. So yes, it is competitive. So you're going to have to work. But I got news for you. We've always had to work. We've always spent the majority of our time out looking for homes. I mean, that is where most of our time is spent, either coming up with different marketing campaigns, different ideas how to contact people, different ways to get in front of folks, different, how to beat our competition, how to do things maybe a little bit differently. That's always been the case. So locating houses, you've got to come up with a marketing plan and you need to stick to it. Now, I know that sounds easier said than done, but that's the bottom line. And let me give you a few ideas. All right. You can do direct mail. I'm going to throw these out and then talk to a little bit about it. You can do direct mail. You can do data mining, where you data mine a neighborhood. Now, remember, we're going back to, you've picked an area. You're not just throwing out 5,000 direct mail pieces all across the DMV or all across suburban Boston. You're figuring out where you want to focus. Focus is key. Sometimes less is more in marketing, so you want to focus. Direct mail, data mining, networking, again, back into that geographical area. Network with realtors, network with contractors, network with other investors, network with the money guys, network with homeowner associations. I mean, you're going to network in those areas. Number 4, direct advertising. This encompasses signage. This encompasses radio. This encompasses TV. Some of the big boys in our area. When I say big boys, guys that are doing a lot of deals. They're doing quite a few deals. The reason they're doing quite a few deals, folks, is they're spending money on marketing, and they're testing, and they're marketing the right. Well, in my opinion, sometimes they throw money away. They can be a little more targeted in their marketing, but regardless, they're doing a good job. And my guess is, if you see them advertising on TV and doing expensive campaigns, they're making money. And then also direct advertising, realtors, networking, as I said. So you could pick one of those things, right? And you could start. You could do a direct mail campaign. Now, I'm also going to tell you need to test, right? You're testing to motivation. You're testing to people that have owned a house for a long time. You're testing to the senior population, maybe move to assisted living. You're testing based on maybe condition of house. Maybe you figure that if they own the house 20 plus years, they've, some of the maintenance items haven't been taken care of. So you're always testing, but you're picking a marketing strategy. When you're new, when you're starting out, you're picking a marketing strategy. You're marrying yourself to it for a certain amount of time. Okay. You're not giving up, because ebbs and flows of markets, right? Right now, as I said, we're in a competitive market. The market has been going up. The velocity of houses turning over is not that great right now. I mean, we're coming out of winter. I think that will improve as maybe some of the deterioration of the economy happens, whether it happens or not. Maybe the sellers won't have as much power. Maybe the realtors won't have as much power. Maybe you as an investor now can come in and have a little more say in what you can offer for a home. So you have to find some of these areas, and then you start adding. So now you have a data mining campaign going, and you're targeting with artificial intelligence, and you're honing in on different neighborhoods, and you're letting them know that this is what you do and this is how you go about your business. But then maybe you're adding in some networking. Then maybe you're adding in a little direct advertising, maybe some local targeted ads, maybe a targeted radio ad, all the different things that you can do. Because the good news and the bad news is, these leads, these properties never come from the same source. If it was just one thing, we'd all just do it. Now, again, spending a lot of money on a TV marketing campaign, That's going to get some leads. Are they going to be good leads? Are you ready for those leads? Are you ready to, manage those leads? So you have to become ready in order to spend the money on the marketing and know what you're doing. Obviously, locating though is going to be spending the majority of your time. Maybe Justin will throw up a picture. As he throws up a picture, I'll talk about it. The next thing is, as you get these leads, you have to have the ability to know your numbers. You have to have the ability to analyze. And some of you say, oh, that's easy. You just buy it at a discount. Folks, you really got to know your numbers. It's probably, it's so important. Now, Justin just threw up a house. This is a house that we completed last year. Again, talking about locating. We do a lot of different things. This house came from a data mining campaign. Okay, this is going in and going deep and targeting. And what we targeted here is we targeted age of property, age of owner. We targeted equity. We targeted a lot of different targeted neighborhood. So there's different data points that we throw in. And when we get this pot, we start letting these people know who we are, what we do, and out of that, eventually something comes. This is a nice little deal in Lanham, and I'll tell you when we get to the profit, kind of what you can expect to make in some of these deals. But as you can see, a very simple first-time home buyer house, $400,000, very up and down, split foyer. 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom in the basement. You see the window there in the front. 2 bathrooms, nothing fancy, but very livable, very, affordable for families. But again, locating, putting in different strategy, different campaigns to find these houses. Now, again, someone might be tuning in going, well, you've been doing this a long time. Well, I haven't been doing this a long time forever. I mean, I started out like any of you did too, like any of you guys are going to do, or you have, and I focused. I had a mentor, someone I could go to, and he guided me to what I needed to do. And it's basically the same thing I'm telling you. I mean, I picked one strategy. I picked pre-foreclosures. I picked an area. At that time for me, it was Montgomery County. And I spent time marketing through letters and door knocking. That's all I did the first 6 months to a year. That's how I got all my deals. And eventually was able to get one a month. And I built from there. I started adding auctions. Then I added estates. And then I added direct marketing. Then I added some note buying. Then I added some buying from landlords. So you add as you go. And that's how you build up this business. But now we go back to analysis. Thanks, Justin. Go back to analysis and just knowing your numbers. I mean, you have to know where you need to buy these houses. Now, for some of you, this is going to be shocking. You need to buy these things pretty cheap. Now, again, tonight, I don't have time to go through the roughly 10 to 12 different line items, if you will, whether you do this through a program or you do it on the back of a napkin. But just understand this, for a good flip in Washington, D.C., right now with the market the way it is, you're going to be buying at about 75. I'm even going to give you the 80 if you're new. 75 to 80% of after repair value. So that's what the house will sell for once it's fixed. And let's take a $400,000 house. 75% of that is going to be 20 is going to be 300,000. Then you subtract what your renovation costs are going to be. We'll get to renovation in a minute. But let's say you're going to put $50,000 in that house. You need to buy that house at about $250,000. That's just back of the napkin, analysis. Now there's more to that. There's utilities, there's renovation, there's your profit, obviously, there's holding costs, there's closing costs when you buy the house, there's closing costs when you sell the house, there's transfer and recordation taxes, there's all these different data points that you have to have a good understanding about in order to come down to the right price. After you've done this for a while, you'll know where you need to be. But roughly, say 80%, which puts you at 320,000. I'm taking another 20% off to be safe. So now you're at 300,000. And I'm subtracting your renovation costs. Now you're at 250. So the back of the napkin, a rough sketch, is roughly 80% of the value of the property, 75 to 80% value of in this market, 75 to 80% value of the after repair value, meaning when the houses are selling in the neighborhood, less your renovation costs. If you buy at that level, I promise you, if all the things are equal, you will make money. And we'll get to how much you can expect here shortly. So analysis. Again, if you need help in any of these things, I'm available. Justin, throughout the process, we'll put up a screen. And you can contact me. I offer very, very affordable coaching. 3 sessions, very affordable. So if you want to take any of these things to get more knowledge and more understanding of it, I'm happy to meet with you on Zoom. We can meet in person. Praise the Lord. We can meet at my office. We can meet a lot of different places. So again, if you ever need any coaching and mentoring, I don't push this that hard. I do in some of these meetings, but if you need help with some of this, you certainly can contact me and let me know. Again, when you call me, text me. Okay, you can text me. You just put coaching or put mentoring or whatever you like. I'll be happy to get in touch with you. All right. The next step, we talked about 5 areas: financing. Okay, and we have a there. Lima Bryant gave it to us right there. Thank you. Why do you need finance? Why do you need to finance a house if you are just flipping it? Okay, well, Lemma, you might be getting confused between wholesaling and flipping. So as we're talking about financing, I'll make that distinction. If you're buying the house, physically buying it, okay, the definition of flipping to me is when you buy a house, you fix it, and you sell it. You're flipping a house. All of the national statistics, that's what they're talking about when you're flipping a house. When you're owning it for less than 1 year, okay? When you're wholesaling a house, you're putting a house under contract. And then in that case, Lemma, you're right. You don't need any money. You need a deposit, maybe $100, maybe $10, maybe $1, something of consideration to give to the seller. And then you're taking that contract and you're assigning that contract for a fee. In that case, you don't need financing. And that's why a lot of people start out wholesaling real estate. Tonight, we're talking about flipping. We're talking about flipping a house, meaning you're buying that house. So obviously, when you're buying it, you're going to need capital. All right, folks, there's tons of different ways. I taught in a weekend course, many of you took for many, many years, 30 different ways to finance a piece of real estate. Tonight, I'm going to limit that to 2, and really common ways that I see a lot of first timers using, and then a lot of us veterans. And that's hard money. Okay, that's very expensive short-term capital that is flowing right now. There's plenty of money out there that you can qualify. This is not credit-based. Not really even experience-based. It's deal-based. They're looking for the right deal. Now, different hard money lenders have different qualifications, but the way I've seen it, they give money just about everybody if the deal qualifies. Okay, so if you're buying at the levels that we're talking about, there's plenty of hard money lenders out there that will give you the capital in order to buy it. There's many other different ways you can learn to raise capital to renovate. Many different ways. Okay, but tonight, when you're purchasing a house, you use hard money. Now, private lenders, what I mean by that is we're getting away from a lot of the fees and a lot of the qualifications. We're finding a private lender. We're finding someone in our network, okay, or your network's network that has capital that'll lend you at a reasonable rate. They won't be charging you a lot of points. They won't be charging you a lot of fees. It's a little more friendly type lender, if you will. I've been financing my buy, renovate, and sells for the past 28 years with private lenders in many different ways. There's owner financing. There's taking over loans subject to. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can finance real estate. But the 2 most common ways, because there's such a amount of money out there, excuse me, is that some of these rates have come down and they made it affordable for us as investors to use. So private money is better, in my opinion, than hard money. There's plenty of hard money out there. You can network for that. They're coming out of the woodwork to lend you money in order to do these flips. And on your first one, to give up a little bit in order to get some experience to get in, I think it'll be worth it for you to do. So we have in the process, we have locating, very, very important. We have analysis, very, very important. We have financing, very, very important. Next, we have renovation. Again, very, very important. Now, with renovation, where a lot of people, have a hard time is finding good crews. You have to create a crew that can complete these projects efficiently and on budget. So on a timely basis and on budget. And the way to find good crews, the good contractors, either a general contractor to run the whole show for you or subcontractors, and you play general contractor, is through referrals. It's through, networking with other investors, finding out who they use as a plumber or they use as a carpet installer or they use as vendors for kitchen cabinets. Most investors will share many of those folks with you. They might keep their favorite here or there to themselves, but a lot of folks will share different contractors with you that can help you in your renovations. Why do they do that? Bottom line is, folks, we can't use our contractors 40 to 60 hours a week. If we can control them by referring them and having a group of investors that use them, it works out pretty well for everybody. But renovation is a big part of this. And again, when you're starting out, you need to be careful. You need to factor in enough capital and enough time in order to do these renovations. Now, what I'm talking about too for your first one, unless you have a construction background, unless you have something else I don't know about, is you're basically doing cosmetic renovations. And what I mean by that is you're doing new kitchens, you're doing new bathrooms, you're landscaping, you may be putting in new windows, new flooring, painting. You're not moving walls, you're not putting on additions, you're not doing a total gut job in DC that costs $275,000. Your average renovation budget you're trying to keep to 30, 40, 50, maybe $70,000. But you're doing things that are right in front of you. You're not changing the floor plan of a house. Now, again, if you have a little more experience, if you have maybe a good network of contractors that you can trust, if you have an architect, if you have some other things that you can kind of add to the pie, maybe you're doing a little bit more complicated renovation. But for a lot of us, the most effective and most profitable houses, if you will, are ones that need basic cosmetic upgrades. We're just taking that house and we're bringing it back to life. We're bringing it back to what the neighborhood demands, and we're pricing it accordingly. So you don't have to get too complicated. But, you do have to spend some time in vendor houses and supply stores and figuring out what things cost. And with inflation, things are going up. You can get a good idea talking to other investors, talking to your contractors, creating this team, creating this partnership, if you will, with them to get these houses done efficiently and on time, the best you can. Now, again, a week or two, even 30 days, that doesn't hurt you. But we don't want you to go into renovation thinking it's going to be 90 days from the time you're ready to sell the house to, a year and a half. And we see that with a lot of newbies. They're not paying attention. They're not in charge of this. And it can take longer than they ever expected. Okay. Finally, on this part is selling. The easy part. This is fun. The house is ready. Okay. You can get rid of all this angst, if you will, and hire the best realtor you know. Hire a realtor, you turn it over to them. They will take it from there. They will get the house marketed. They will help you price the house. They will make sure that the other pieces are in place, like a good title company. Maybe they have a good lender, good pest control company, maybe a punch out team for when the home inspection comes. So a realtor can solve all these problems. Now, if you don't want to pay that extra money it's going to cost for you to have a realtor, you either need to get a real estate license, or you need to find a discount brokerage, or you need to do it yourself. I mean, there are ways, and many of you can sell just as well as anyone else. And if you put it online these days, it's basically getting out to the public. And that's the main thing. You want to broaden your house out to the public. You want to broadcast it out. And, a good realtor will do that, and they'll help you negotiate, they'll help you price it. So it might be worth 2.5% of the sales price of that house to find that good realtor. But selling the house in my opinion, based on these 5 areas, is probably one of the easier parts, if you will. If you've done a good job with everything else, if you've priced it right and you've done a decent renovation job, you should be able to sell it, especially in this market. And even as our market slows down and gets a little normalized, it's a good market to sell. Happy Homes. I thought 70-80% of ARV is good purchase price. Well, Happy Homes, at 80%, let's just do some math. If we have a $400,000 house and you're buying it for $320,000 and you got to settle on it, that's going to cost you roughly $12,000. So now you're at $342,000. You got a $50,000 renovation budget. You're at $392,000, and your house is worth $400,000. You haven't factored in holding costs. You haven't factored in overruns in budget. You haven't factored in selling the house. You're probably going to lose $20,000 to $50,000 if you buy that at that price. Now, if you buy a $400,000 house for $320,000 and you only have to put $10,000 in the house, you have a different story. So again, all this works together. A lot of it depends on how much work that house needs. Okay. You keep coming in with these formulas. I'm not sure where you're coming up. Repairs minus holding costs, cost of sale equals purchase price. fair enough. If that's the way to do it, I kind of told you the way I do it a little more sophisticated way, but the back of the napkin is basically 75 to 80% less your renovation costs. That's going to get you in the ballpark of where you need to be. If you want to pay more, we're going to get to pitfalls here in a minute. If you want to pay more, there should be a reason you want to pay more. Either you think the house is worth a little bit more, maybe you think that the renovations aren't very much. So you certainly can pay more for a home, but you got to run all the numbers to make sure that's going to work. All right, let's move on. Let's go to profit. Let's throw a profit. And when Justin has a chance, I'll throw up a couple of properties. He gave you an email we sent out, talked about the average profit across the country for flips. And I've always laughed at this number because, again, this is a gross profit. This is worthless. These are worthless statistics. And it said the gross profit is in the 60s, but again, they haven't factored in all the other costs that are involved in these properties. Now, before we start this, the way I look at this is a little different than some people. Some people talk about profits. Some people I talk about revenue. And this depends on how you're setting up your business. If you're a part-timer, if you have a full-time job, let's say you work for the federal government, you make $125,000, and you want to do this part-time, and you want to buy 1 or 2 houses over the course of the year. Well, then again, when you add up everything and you've paid all your contractor, you've paid any holding costs, you've paid your settlement fees, you've paid your realtor, all the costs have been paid outside of taxes, because everybody's tax bracket is a little bit different. But outside of taxes, income taxes, you can call it profit. And let's say you make $53,000 profit. Okay, that's going to be what you're going to be paid taxes on. Now, the way I look at this is I call it revenue, because I have a business, I have a company. And so on a house like this is a house I completed recently, and the revenue on the house is really the same as profit, but the revenue on the house was in the 60s. It was about $67,000. That's what we made on this house. But I call it revenue because that goes into a bucket, right? That goes into JB and Realty's bucket. It's not what I pay taxes on because I have business expenses. I have marketing costs. I have overhead from my office. I have employee costs. I have all the different costs of a small business owner. So I call it revenue. And when I start my year, when I look at my goals, I look at how much revenue can we make, okay, based on obviously properties. We know we do X amount of properties. We know the average revenue profit on each house is X, and we go from there. So it's a little bit different a way of looking at it. But the profit you can make on most renovations in DC metro area, and I'm not talking, again, it depends on your price point. Okay, this is where some investors really screw up, in my opinion. There's many investors that are doing big deals down in DC where they're paying $485,000 for the purchase, putting $250,000 in it, and selling it for $850,000. And at the end of that whole cycle there, they're making $50,000. Well, to me, that's a tremendous amount of risk on that kind of sale, because if the market turns even a little, they're going to get hurt. Okay, they're going to get hurt. And it takes time, and it's a lot of renovation. So I would say the average suburban profit, if you will, the average profit of what I'm talking about, going in, of taking a house and cosmetically updating it, not adding on, not changing the floor plan, not rewiring the whole house, not replumbing the whole house, not gutting the house, if you will. The average that I see is $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Go a little bit more, and that's on about a 400 and under house. Now, can you go a little under? Can you make 70 grand? Can you make 80 grand? Absolutely. Can you make 20 grand? Hey, sometimes you do. Okay. But your average is going to be in that, 40, 50, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less range. That's what I've seen over many, many years of doing this, even still. Now, again, as markets are accelerating, as appreciating a little bit, we can make a little bit more money, because when we get ready to sell the house, the neighborhood's gone up a little bit. Don't get caught, though. We'll talk about this in pitfalls, but don't get caught on counting on that appreciation. You want to do your analysis based on when you're buying that house, what houses in that neighborhood are selling for during that time, not 6 months from now. All right. You can get hurt pretty bad if you're basing, you're paying 80% of value for the house because you think, well, the house is going to go up $20,000, so I'll be fine when you sell it. It's a dangerous game. You can throw up another one, Justin. Again, these are first-time home buyer neighborhoods. This particular one was in Silver Spring. The next one he'll throw up is in Southern Maryland. That was a low 70s house. Okay. This is just a very, very simple Rambler. I just bought it right. And you're seeing the as is picture of the house. But that was about a $73,000 profit on this little house. Very, very simple house. Okay. Very, very simple house. I was able to buy that house for $120 and sold it in the sold it higher, sold it close to 300. So it needed a fair amount of work inside, but made good money on that one. So again, your profits or your revenue, just so you know, if you're thinking about getting this business, they're fantastic. I mean, a lot of these houses, if you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on, maybe more, most people don't make that in a year. Okay, in a year. So of course it's going to be a little bit hard. Of course there's going to be some challenges. Of course you're going to have to learn and get educated and surround yourself with good people in order to make that kind of money on a property. That's why it's competitive. People know that. People know that you can do very well when you find the right deal. So you can. From my experience, that's kind of what you should expect. Now, if you're just starting out and your networking is great. You're learning how to renovate. You're learning how to, put money together. If you came at the end of the day and you made $30,000 and all the dust cleared, that's fantastic. So your expectation maybe when you're starting out is really, I know this is hard to hear, but it's a little more experience versus trying to strangle every last dollar out of that renovation. But it will come. It will come a little bit with experience. And that's just a function of knowing what to renovate, what not to renovate, knowing, different materials to use, getting through your renovation, faster. If you can turn these houses, get them from the time you buy them to fix them, to getting ready back in the market, 60 to 90 days. That's generally our average time. I give it 90 days because, if we're doing X amount of deals during that time, we have people moving all different directions. So if you get through things in 90 days, get it back on the market, you're doing pretty well. Obviously, profits too sometimes are factored into time of year. Right now is a great time of year, springtime. If you're putting a house maybe in middle of November, it might take a tad longer to sell, or middle of winter. So some of your profits are determined on it's hard to time. We like them all to be on the market, middle of March to middle of April, possible, but that's not always possible. So, but your profits are pretty steady, you can figure out your profit pretty easily. And then once you have that number, obviously now you can figure out what you want the revenue of your company for, and then you can back out some of your marketing costs. So if you want to do, hey, I want to do 10 deals, I think I can average $50,000 a deal. That's $500,000 revenue. I know I have a little bit of overhead, but I'm working out of my house and I have some, expenses obviously. But hey, if I could set aside, $50,000, $60,000, maybe $5,000 a month for marketing, that's about 10% of my budget. That would be pretty good. So that's why I talk about revenue. And obviously that money is written off as an expense of your business. You're not going to pay taxes on all that money. So you can live through some of your LLCs and some of your companies in order to reduce your tax liabilities. All right, pitfalls. Let's grab some pitfalls here. Again, we could spend hours on each one of these, but just wanted to, introduce some of you that have never really experienced some of this, knowing what to watch out for. So the pitfalls. Number one is, and I'm getting it from comments on our feed here, is you're overpaying for the property. I mean, I see it all the time. I scratch my head. I try to figure out how the heck can he pay that much or she pay that much and still make a profit. Well, I got news for you. They don't. Numbers are numbers. Numbers are not emotional. Numbers don't get, oh gosh, I really wanted to, or I really felt that way. They don't care. Numbers are numbers. And so you have to have an understanding of what things cost, and you have to understand where you're going to buy these properties. Now, an accelerating market, an appreciating market, that rescues people, no doubt. So they've overpaid for a property, but when they get ready to sell it, the market is propped up and they sold it and they still made a profit. That's fine. That's great. But sometimes that merry-go-round stops. And if you're on it, you're going to get hurt badly. So it's better to kind of have a good understanding of knowing what to pay for a house based on all the fundamentals. Number one thing I see. It's not understanding analysis. Um, Believing that value will rise once you're ready to sell. And we've been in that market now for a little while. So it's very easy to do and very easy to fall into, but you just got to be careful of that. Second pitfall I see with newbies is too much renovation. Um, they just go crazy. I mean, they watch too much HGTV. They watch these shows that are geared toward TV audiences, not real life, and they do too much renovation. They want to put recessed lights everywhere. They want to put tile everywhere, backsplashes in the kitchen, too much tile in the bathroom. Um, Moldings. They want to do just crazy things to the house that aren't needed. Remember, when you're renovating a house, again, now I shouldn't, I'm being too general, I guess. It depends on your type of renovation. Some of you want to do maybe higher end properties where you need some more of the bells and the whistles. You need some of the wiring in, you need some of the, special things in the kitchen. You need, maybe a little bit updated bathrooms. But if you're doing working class neighborhoods, you want to renovate toward that neighborhood. You want to make that house fresh, clean, updated, but you don't need to go crazy. Let the homeowners dream a little bit. Let them do a little bit of work. You're just spending money foolishly. And at the end of the day, you're not going to make a profit. Because that's what this is about. This is a business. You're an investor. You're making capital investment to get a return. That doesn't mean you don't want to do things crappy. You want to deliver a good product, but you don't have to go overboard. You obviously got to make everything safe. You want to make everything safe, but you don't have to go overboard sometimes with your renovations. The other thing I see with a lot of new investors, I see this older investors. When I say older investors, people that are experienced, is you put the house on before you're finished. You're not finishing. You're not taking the extra 2 or 3 days it requires to finish that house. And a lot of it revolves around, timing of different materials in the house. I see houses that put on the market without appliances. Now, again, some of this is dictated right now because of the supply chain issue, but I'm saying overall, you haven't peeled stickers off new windows. It drives me crazy. You haven't cleaned the house properly. Cleaning a house is the most inexpensive, most effective thing that you can do with selling a house. Spend money and time on cleaning. Take a little time with curb appeal, some bags of mulch, but don't just spread. I see investors just spread mulch randomly. Get a good landscaper that can really cut your beds in tight. So when someone pulls up to that house, they see someone that's taking care of that house. And put a little thought and energy and time into that home. So edging lawns, edging flower beds. Now, again, a lot of times, and you'll see a lot of my houses, we don't have the ability to plant bushes and flowers because we're not there all the time. We plant the bushes and flowers, we're not there, and they die. But we try to make a clean landscape feel so someone can come in and they can do some of that gardening. But we take time. We fix broken fences. We make sure the house is power washed. I mean, when you walk in, it's clean, it's fresh, and it's ready to go. So not finishing to me, you have open electrical boxes, you have, trash and debris in the laundry area or the storage area, or you haven't taken time under the staircase to remove mold. I mean, there's all these things that are red flags, and people can see this doesn't, or the house doesn't smell good when they first walk in. And all those very simple things will help you quite a bit. So the pitfalls revolve around overpaying for the house, too much renovation, or crappy renovation, okay? Hiring guys that really don't know what they want to do. My general contractor, God bless him, I've been with him for many years, and we fight like a married couple sometimes. I mean, we go at it occasionally, not yelling matches, but disagreements on things to do. And one of his pet peeves is when he's going down the road and he sees a van, and the van on the side says, we do basically everything: painting, drywall, tile work, hardwood floors, and he just laughs. He goes, contractors, most of them can't do everything. They do one thing well. And if you can find what they do well, you're in good shape. But when you get someone that doesn't know how to refinish floors, refinishing floors, you're just throwing your money away. And I've seen it time and time again. Or you get, someone that can really paint. They're really good painters, but they also say they do electrical work. And man, that you're just setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for a lot of headaches. So make sure that, you're surrounding yourself with good people. So those are the pitfalls. Question from Lama. She's our question person. Are there any special concerns when flipping a much higher priced home, like a $3 million after repaired value home that you have under contract for 2.0 needs 100K renovation? Well, no, I would find it hard to believe that a legitimate $3 million home that you can buy for 2.3 million only needs $100,000 renovation. Remember, the cost of materials and the labor for homes of that nature are going to be more expensive. So I don't think 100K probably goes too far. You better take a hard look at the work required and the true value of that home. See, when you start getting into these higher priced homes, what is the real value? See, it's very easy to do a townhouse, right? You can just go all through the neighborhood and say, yeah, that townhouse sold for 380, that one sold for 380, that one sold for 379, that one sold for 385. Oh, that had a half bath, that sold for 390. But when you start getting into $3 million homes, those can be extremely different. And so you have to make sure that you're looking at cost per square foot. You have to look at neighborhood. You need a lot more analysis to do that if these houses aren't in a cookie cutter neighborhood, to make sure that you're not making a mistake. Because a $3 million house can come down to 2.6 million, 2.5 million very, very quickly, very, very quickly. That's not to say not to do it. And $100,000 renovation budget on a $3 million home that they're selling for 2.3 million, make sure you understand those renovation costs, because replacing a kitchen in a $3 million home can be $100,000. Doing a couple bathrooms or doing landscaping or doing maintenance work, all that thing can be a little more expensive. But there's nothing, you just gotta, when you're getting into higher priced properties, and the other thing too, when you're renovating a higher priced property, you're getting away a little bit from some of the renovations that are kind of universal or standard across more homes. You're starting to get them much more custom. And you got to be careful that what you're renovating appeals to the buyer that's eventually going to buy that $3 million home. So just a little more extensive, a little more tricky. You got to spend a little more time on some of these things to think through it, to make sure that you're making the right, the right choices, because you make a mistake in that realm and, it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars. But good question. Good question. All right. So that's my guide. Those are the things you need to start figuring out. All right. Let's go through this real quick here. If you have questions, throw them on the screen. So the process, 5 areas: locating, analysis, financing, renovation, selling. Those 5. You get to know those really well, you'll do very, very well in this business. And again, if you need help with any of this, it'll come on the screen. Let me know. Happy to sit down with you. We can do 3 one-hour sessions, and I can move you along very, very quickly if you need any help. The profit, I've kind of told you the profit. You can look up some of the profits on your own, but just make sure it's net profit or net revenue. It's not gross profit, because they're not factoring in. And the reason they can't is because they can't see behind the curtain. They don't know. They're seeing a house that sold for 120 and then sold for 190. They don't know all the middle. So you got to be very, very careful. The middle is what kills you. The middle is the nuts and bolts of the business. And the pitfalls, man, there's many, but don't be afraid of it. I mean, it's nothing that you can't do. Flipping houses is not rocket science. It really is not. The key is finding good deals. That's your number one thing. You find a good deal, there's lots of different ways to make money, lots of different ways to profit from that. But there are pitfalls, and you have to be aware of those. And you have to understand that you're taking risk. But man, I would encourage you, any of you that are thinking about flipping a house, you need any advice or help, let me know. It's been my career for 28 plus years. It's the main source of my income, buying, renovating, and selling houses. The true wealth of real estate, as I end this session here, the true wealth, though, is holding on to property. It's holding on to property. The flipping of houses, whether you're wholesaling or renovating or buying and selling a note, or however you or being a realtor and having commissions, or being a loan officer and making commissions, however you're making income is great. That's going to create your lifestyle. That's going to create, your own personal lifestyle. It's your income. It's like working for IBM or working for the federal government. Whatever you make is your income. But you got to take that income. You got to take part of it, right? Save it, and you got to invest it. And for me, it's been investing in long-term cash flowing real estate. Commercial real estate, residential real estate, notes. That's where the real wealth is. That's where you can hang your hat. You don't want to meet someone that's been in the real estate business 25 years and they don't own any property. I shouldn't say that. Maybe they own maybe their stock portfolio is through the roof. But a lot of long-term real estate investors have made their money in holding real estate long-term. And we've just gone through a tremendous time of appreciation. So all of our portfolios, all of our real estate portfolios, our values of our properties have gone up exponentially. And that could come down. There's ebbs and flows in real estate like everything else, but it's a great business. I encourage you to do it. If I can help you in any way, let me know. We're coming into the spring. It's getting warm outside. It's a great time of year. Those of you who know me know that I love March Madness. The Masters is coming up, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, baseball season, just a great, great time. As a sports fan and as a real estate investor. So get out there, find some deals. If I can help you in any way with any of these areas, feel free to reach out. You all have my cell phone number. I'll be happy to see if I can help you. I hope this helped you a little bit. Hope you gave you a few ideas. I know it's condensed. We could spend hours and hours on a lot of these things. So hopefully that helped you a little bit. Let's see if we have. Happy Homes. Are we going to meet in person? Happy Homes? I sure hope so. Yes, the answer is yes. We're putting some of that back into place so we can start networking a little bit, see each other's faces. We'll be getting back to the Women's Club of Bethesda here shortly. And we'll be in touch and let you know of that. Hopefully, as we come out of this pandemic, everyone's feeling good, feeling comfortable, and we'll get together and we'll get going. I did see something here real quick. Gary's comment I thought was interesting because I know Gary's done some deals. Contractor takes too long. Absolutely. I mean, that can be a challenge. So we definitely gotta be aware of that. So thanks so much for helping us out, Alfonso. Good to see your name on the screen. Hopefully you're doing well. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next month. Reach out. I'm around. Text me. Call me on my cell phone. Be happy to help you with any of this to get you moving in the right direction. Take care. Thanks again for joining us.